Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. Today, I have with me writer Tong Ge. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Not too bad. And we're here to talk about your book, which is titled The House Filler,
Yeah,
which almost sounds like a do-it-yourself kind of project, but it's a totally different kind of book, isn't it?
yeah.
And what's it about?
Um, it follows Golden Phoenix life journey from 1920 to 1966 in China.
Okay, who's Golden Phoenix?
Golden Phoenix is the protagonist of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the story is based on my grandmother's story.
Oh, very
So
cool.
yeah, in China at that time, a woman's beauty is not measured by her looks, but measured by the size of her feet. So the
Okay.
tinier the feet, the more desirable those women were. So that's
Hmm.
why the parents start to bond their children's feet at age 4 or 5.
Right.
Golden Phoenix, being a motherless child, didn't get her feet bound until she was 6. So her feet was not the ideal size of 3 twin golden water lily size.
Okay.
So 3 Chinese twins is about 4 inches long.
Hmm.
So therefore, that's one reason her marriage was delayed. Another reason was because she was trained as a seamstress and became the family's breadwinner at a young age. So her father kept her too long, like in the house for too long. So she
Mm-hmm.
didn't marry until she was 26. By then, all the young lads were gone. So she had to marry a widower. In Chinese culture, a woman who marries a widower is called a house filler.
Oh, okay.
That's why the title of the book.
Ah, interesting. Okay, well, we'll get into that a bit further, a bit later on. But before we do, let's dive into your background. I see from your sheet here that you have a very interesting background. You came to Canada in the 80s as a student,
Yeah,
international student.
yeah.
And what did you come to Canada for? And why
Um,
did you come to Canada?
well, in a in one word, in one sentence, to pursue freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, the formerly I came here as a student to pursue my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the time, most Chinese who came abroad as a students um, ultimately were pursuing freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That was the reason I've been giving to people all these years until one day I realized, um, yes, freedom was important, but also it's for dignity
Mm-hmm.
because in China we didn't have much dignity. Um,
Okay.
if you're not,
Because of,
yeah, because of the society is divided into different classes.
okay.
Not officially, not in writing, but everybody knows.
Right.
So when I was growing up, the red, we call the red ones, like red, um,
Mm-hmm.
those people who were soldiers and peasants and factory workers, they were good. They were considered as have a right status. Um,
Okay.
People who came from a family with for instance, if their family before 1949, before the communists took over the power, they were landlords, they were factory owners, they were considered rich, or even if
Mm-hmm.
they were knowledgeable, they went through university in a so-called old society, and the bourgeois, they were considered black class or bad people. So that's
Mm.
the background I grew up.
Okay.
But
Very
in
interesting.
yeah, so those, especially the red family, red families, they were the one who fought, who were fought like nationalists, who were communists, who
Right.
went through that, who followed the communist leaders and established China. They were like
Mm-hmm.
the top of the social ladders.
Okay.
And if you're, don't have that background, you're not powerful, you're not famous, you're not rich, you're just nobody. And
Right.
anyone, if you have a supervisor or anyone have power over you, it doesn't have to be your supervisor, it could be a doorman, could be a person who can distribute quota for purchase certain goods. They have power over you, and in front of
Right.
them, you're nobody.
Okay.
I experienced that very distinctly when I was I already came to Canada, and then in 1992 I went back to China to visit. At that
Mm.
time, the Chinese market was not open yet. So for lots of electronic products, not only you need the money to buy it, you also need quota, so-called quota. So as international students return to China, we had 5 quotas for 5 products. Like one quota is for big item, let's say a TV or VCR or fridge. Then you have 4 quotas for smaller items. So,
Mm.
but it's not like you don't automatically get it. You have to go to this office and this government official. You have to present your proof that you're returning student, and then that person will stamp these quotas for you. And then I remember when I went there, I was standing in the room. He didn't even bother to lift his head, and he didn't answer me. I stood there for like a good 5 or 10 minutes. People come and go, and the people came in, they talk, then leave. So after 4 or 10 minutes, eventually he lifted his head. He said, "Okay, what's your business?" So you
Mm.
just felt you were so humiliated. Like
Hmm.
that's the dignity I am talking about.
Okay.
So it's not only for freedom; it's like for dignity, and that's um
Right.
yeah,
So when you came to Canada in 1980, correct?
1988.
88. Okay.
Yeah.
Did your family, like, were you intending to stay in Canada then at that point
At
after?
the time, we were not allowed to stay, even though every single one wanted to stay, but we were not allowed. Then,
Okay.
in 1989, the Tiananmen massacre happened.
Okay.
So
Yes.
after that, the Canadian government allowed us to stay.
Ah, okay.
We just stayed by chance, not by design. Like we
By
had to
design,
go
yeah,
back.
because I was trying to work out how you managed to pull that off. So I
Yeah.
see. So most of your family is still in China then, or?
My father passed away in 1991, and my mother is in Canada now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and was that a difficult process for you to get her to come over, or?
It was not that difficult for her, but it was extremely difficult for me to come to
Ah,
Canada. Yeah,
right.
even though it was legal, it was official, but it's a long, long, long story. It will be in my third book.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I guess because you just have such a unique background to most writers that I talk about, so it's just interesting to hear how
yeah.
you came to Canada. Now, your educational background is much more in it was as what, as engineering or science,
No,
and science. So were you at that time as well? Like, were you a reader and writer?
I actually wanted to be a writer since I was in junior high. And
Okay.
when I was going to college, we need to choose our major. And I wanted to choose either Chinese literature or journalism. But my
Okay.
parents strongly
Ah,
objected because at the time, be a writer is still considered a dangerous occupation. You could be
okay.
thrown in jail for something you said or
Sure.
you wrote. So they
Right.
forced me to eventually forced me to choose a major of finance and banking. That was my bachelor's was in finance and banking.
Okay.
After I graduated, I went to a university to work as a teacher, and I was in a Depart, department of agriculture economics.
Mm,
And then when I applied for graduate schools in Canada, because if I apply for MBA, I wouldn't get any scholarship. So I
okay.
applied for agriculture economics, and that turned my major into a science. Because in China, finance and banking is considered as arts, not science.
Oh, okay.
So it's a total switch from art to science, and That's how I
Hmm.
got my Master of Science in Agriculture Economics.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned that you always wanted to be a writer, and when growing up, how easy was access to books for you? Like, were you just reading strictly from within your country books, or were you able to access books that were printed outside of China?
When I was growing up again, in 1966, China
Hmm.
started a thing called the Cultural Revolution. So that's
Right.
a huge political campaign that lasted for 10 years.
Hmm.
And during this time, they banned many books. You don't just say there's hardly any books in a bookstore you can buy. The books they published some Soviet Union books, novels,
Hmm.
and also some there's one writer and 8 authors in China in the whole culture arena at the time.
Okay.
So
Mm.
it's extremely hard to find books, even the old books like classics, Chinese classics.
Hmm.
They're all banned. So when I was 7 years old, like my father was labeled as a black class and was thrown in a cow shed. Like cow shed is like a concentration camp.
Mm.
Along with many of his colleagues, he was a university professor.
Mm.
But in when I was 7 years old, he was released, but he was suspended from work. Every evening, like during the week, he had to go to the political meetings.
Hmm.
However, at the time, we had the power outage like 2 or 3 times a week. So when that happened, he got to stay home, and
Mm.
our house was raided twice by the Red Guards. But there's one, the 2 volume of books is called the English translation is called The Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, or The Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. It was written by a Qing Dynasty writer. His name is Pu Songling. He spent like 40 years to write this collection of short stories. And
Mm.
the short stories was like close to 500. So it's a
Mm.
very famous classic book. Somehow that book survived the raid. I didn't know how it survived. So during those nights, we would draw our window curtains and light a single candle. And my mom, my dad, and I would huddle around this candlelight. And the dad would read the stories from this book.
Wow.
Because the book was written in classic Chinese, he had to also translate into modern Chinese and
Mm.
told the stories. It was like most memorable memory of my childhood
I
was
bet.
during that time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
And were the stories like, were they like parables or
they were
fables
like
or?
mostly like fantasies and some
Okay.
horror. Yeah,
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah. It's
Okay.
actually it's the whole 2 volumes have just been translated into English and published this year,
Oh,
2024.
okay. Wow.
Before that, someone translated like about 25% of the whole collection.
Okay. And
Yeah,
is it the translated books the same title that you mentioned in English, or
yeah,
did they have a different?
yeah.
Okay.
The strange stories from a Chinese studio, or the strange
Okay.
tales from a Chinese studio. You
Okay.
can find
Wow.
it on Amazon. It's like a
Okay.
fantastic book.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I think that would be very interesting to a lot of our readers. So again, a very unique background that you have, and it's such a restrictive environment. Uh, did you nurture this desire to be a writer? Did you like you didn't really talk about it outside of your house, I would think, or
Um,
was it kind of a taboo thing to talk about, or?
well, when I was young, I didn't know. Like, I only had the idea I want to be a writer when I was in junior high. But before that, I just like to tell stories. I was a
Right.
storyteller. I would
Hmm.
tell stories of what my dad told us, like from the book, or the little bit of folk tales I found here and there, and would tell
Hmm.
my friends, my classmates.
Okay.
So, and at the time, the storytelling became a survival tool for me, not just for entertainment, because of my father's status, I was attacked by other boys in the school.
Mm.
So every morning when I went to school, I would gather a few girls around me, and on the way, I would tell them the story. So they always want to go to school and come back with me, walk with me, and kind of protected me and surrounded me for that. So I
Mm.
storytelling become surviving to when I was
Wow.
that young. But
Mm.
in the 80s, when I went to university, that's when China opened this door to the Western world and economic reform started. That's when
Hmm.
we start to have all kinds of books, classic Chinese and foreign books translated into Chinese, not only novels and fictions, but also non-fictions, philosophy,
Okay.
history. The whole, our eyes are opened like so much, and we read. I read so much.
Mm.
Almost you're so hungry for the knowledge and
Right.
for the Western
Right.
world. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
when I read lots of poetry and also Western novels by great writers,
Hmm.
and I started wrote poems myself in
Okay.
university. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned you read a lot of poetry and some Western novels. Was there writers that you really um, maybe had heard about your whole life but weren't able to read because of the climate you grew up in, but you must have jumped at the chance to read a lot of these, very famous writers?
Um, it's when I was young, you didn't even heard about them. Like there's no,
Okay.
you don't even
Oh,
hear.
okay.
Like we know Chinese classics that we knew,
Right.
but for Western books, they just flashed in.
Okay.
So like Dickens, like all these famous writers, Jack London, Hemingway, and
Hmm.
a whole bunch like classic English novels, basically.
Right. I'm
Um,
just curious, were you like was Shakespeare something that you were allowed to read or no?
we were in the 80s, yes.
Okay.
So the entire collection of Shakespeare's um, plays were in a bookstore.
Okay.
And yeah, but the Shakespeare is a bit hard because I mean, even
Sure.
they translate into Chinese, but it's a
Hmm.
little bit. Yes, I read some of the plays, but not the entire collection.
Right. Right. What about like real what I would consider classic stuff like Sage Jules Verne or Sherlock Holmes or stuff like that? Were you
Yeah,
aware of
we
that?
had Sherlock Holmes. Um,
Okay.
Actually, even during the Cultural Revolution, I like our family friends,
Okay.
their son and the daughter-in-law, somehow they got hold of a book of Sherlock Holmes. They were reading it secretly, but I was so
Mm.
angry with them, but they wouldn't lend it to me or to anyone. Right? I just heard about Sherlock Holmes' name. I said, "Oh, I want to read that
Right.
book."
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, like coming up to present day, in terms of your reading, have you developed affection for certain genres or types of certain writers?
I like just how do I put it? Just like literary fiction and
Okay.
historical fiction. That's my thing.
Okay. Okay.
I like Ayn Rand very
Hmm.
much. Um, if there's someone influence, I like Victor Hugo.
Okay.
I like Bal- Balzac.
Hmm.
But because Ja- Rand, her book hasn't been translated into Chinese until recent years, but
Okay.
the classics, like I like Victor Hugo a lot. Actually, China is pretty open about his book because his book is kind of criticize the French at the time.
Okay.
The books criticize the Western world is always after the 80s they were um, they were promoted, and
Right.
you know everybody know even the play, the movie, and uh, uh, like a hunchback of the Notre
Notre
Dame.
Dame. Yep.
Yeah, that was like we saw the movie in the 80s.
All right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
few really great writers I think influenced me hugely. Um,
Right. Yeah. A slight tangent, and probably because I'm if I have this wrong, um, science fiction has a bit of a history in China as well, I believe. Like the three body problem. You're familiar with those books?
yeah, I read the entire series of Three Body Problem, but
Okay.
Three Body Problem, the science fiction writers or of books only appeared in the last like 15 years, maybe 10 or
Okay.
15 years.
Okay.
There are not very many science fiction books when I growing
Mm,
up.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Um,
interesting. So, I I've delved into your background with you a lot more than other writers, but again, because you have a very unique perspective from the general writers that I interview. But I just think it's important to set the stage, because my next big question for you is, when did you start writing, and do you write in your head in your native tongue and then translate it to English, or are you at a point where you just think in English when you're writing?
When I first write my book, I have to say that the House Failure is the first book of the trilogy,
Hmm.
and I finished the entire trilogy. It's not because I wanted, because it just happened because I wrote a big long book with 240,000 words, and I
Oh,
couldn't find a
wow.
publisher. Eventually, I was told that you have to divide it into 2 or 3 books because your books is too long.
Right.
So that's how I got 3 books now.
Okay.
I started in 2004. First, I wrote in Chinese and
Mm.
in the form of letters, like the letters sent from Canada to China, from one sister to another. But after about 16, 17 letters, I couldn't continue because for two reasons. First, I had a repetitive strain injury on my both arms, so I was on
Okay.
disability leave
Okay.
and I couldn't type. And
Mm.
the second reason was I realized that if I need any help, critique group, editors, publisher, I can't write in Chinese. So I
Hmm.
switched in English. I started to take writing courses and read
Okay.
books about writing
Hmm.
and writing and learn from there, join the critique group. Um,
Hmm.
then I start to think in English,
Ah.
write in English directly. Having
Okay.
said that, if I need to translate a Chinese saying or a poem or something, I have to translate literally from Chinese to English. Um, Other than that, I pretty much think in English now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's an interesting transition again for you. You've gone through a lot of transitions in your life, and you've come out with the ability to write this trilogy, 440,000 words in one go. Was this your first big novel that
yeah,
you
it's
wrote?
it's my first. Yeah,
Okay. How long did it take you to write?
almost 20 years.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
Yeah,
and because you said you based it on your grandmother, correct?
the first book is based on my grandmother's story. The second book is based on my parents' story, and
Okay.
the third book is based on my own story before I came to Canada.
Ah,
So that's
okay.
why it's called the China trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the titles? Do you have the titles for the other two
Yeah,
books?
the second one is the pinnated bird.
The what
The
word? Sorry.
pinnated bird.
Okay.
Yeah. The third one is the working title is the Dream Chaser.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
So, and so you had these three books, and you got um, where did you go from there with it? Because you said you submitted it for publishing and was told it was too large. Did you get an editor then at that point, or
I have been hiring freelance editors throughout the process,
okay?
both copy editors and structure editors. And
Mm-hmm.
because I write in the second language, so it's extremely hard for me. And I didn't even feel I was ashamed to just present my writing to the critique group
Sure.
without anybody look at it beforehand. So I
Mm-hmm.
hired an editor on an installment basis while I was writing it, a copy editor. Then I have to present my writing to the critique group. And then, but after all the feedbacks, I need to change. So eventually I have to hire the editor again, like one more
Mm,
time. So
right.
for both copy editors and the structure editors, I pretty much hired them twice through
Okay.
the process.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, first book has been published traditionally, but second book I'm still looking for a home for the second book.
Okay. All right.
It's done, it's finished. I'm still fine tuning it, but I think each book is getting larger because I don't know too much details about my grandmother's life, but I know more about my parents than way more about myself.
Right.
So each book
Right.
getting longer, and
Right.
it's richer as well. It's way more
Okay.
stuff in it.
Sure. Now, do
Yeah.
you consider these books autobiographical or fiction?
I would call it fiction, but
Okay.
I would say because I still fictionalize details. And
Hmm.
also I need to do characters consolidation. I need to write. So it's a fiction, strictly
Right.
speaking,
Right.
but it's based on real life events and real life stories. I would say
Right.
90% are true. It doesn't matter who it happened to. Maybe it didn't happen to this person, this character, but happened to a different person. But
Sure.
that 90% are true. Yeah.
Right. So when your books went through the editing process, how much did they change? And do you feel the change was for the better?
It helped me tremendously. Like why,
Okay.
the difference between Chinese and English is huge.
Okay. In what way?
Grammatically, especially, for
Ah.
example, we only have one tense. We don't have past tense, future tense. We don't have
Oh, okay.
multiple
Interesting.
tense.
Yeah.
So when I start to write, I choose to use past tense for the first and second book. But I couldn't do that consistently because I
Mm,
would forget. And
right.
also we don't have like a plural. We only have singular.
Oh,
So you
okay.
would say one dog, two dogs, three dogs. Our verb doesn't change with the subject. So I would say you do, I do, she do. So
Okay.
under the preposition is really, really hard because there's no rule to follow. It's just the way you say it. But in Chinese, if I use logic, it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So so copy edit, even my critique group members, friends, they were so helpful. They even correct my grammatical mistakes, which
Okay.
it's really lots of work. And
Right.
copy editor, I just need them. It helped me. If I just present what I wrote to the publisher, I wouldn't get
Sure.
anyone interested.
Right.
Structure or developmental editor helped me in a big way. My first book, The House Failure, actually now the opening chapter was the old seventh chapter, like chapter
Okay.
7. So
Right.
that's how much I had to cut off because it was too slow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a trait that most beginning writers struggle with, is that they include too much, and
Yeah.
a lot of times the more seasoned people could tell them, says, no, this is where the story really starts, like, oh, chapter 7 or whatever. All this other stuff that you've done is just uh, nobody cares about it. They just want to get to the point. I guess it's the simplest way of saying it. So I've seen that type of feedback quite a bit, talking to other writers as well. So that's interesting. So um,
It was hard for me to decide what to cut out, what
mhm,
to leave. And also
right.
when two editors give you conflicting opinions, who who do you follow, right?
Right, yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, that's hard, especially when you're starting out. Then you have to kind of follow your heart or your
Yeah.
sense. Now you wrote this, uh, you wrote it in English, but I'm wondering, did you have a tendency to just assume that people would know about certain aspects of your culture that you didn't explain in the original draft, and people like your beta readers or whoever your writing group would say, "I don't know what you mean by this. Can
Oh,
you explain?" That happened quite a bit, or
that's happened quite a bit because
right,
I forgot I'm writing for English readers. So
right.
I just assuming they know this, but actually they don't. So I have
Mhm.
to work out the way to make it um, understandable. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's happened.
Without doing info dumps.
Yeah, no. So that's why I think writing in Chinese and translating into English is different from writing in English directly.
Right.
Because when you write in Chinese, you don't consider you're writing for English readers, so you just use
Sure.
things all Chinese people understand, but English
Yep.
readers, all foreign readers, they don't.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
difference there. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I can't help but wondering though, like, because you're writing this sort of autobiographical history of your family, it seems like the real audience for this would be in China. Um, would these books be publishable in China?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I
Okay.
think if I probably have to cut off some parts for it to be
Because
published in
because of
China.
because you're
Censorship,
making censorship?
because of
Okay.
censorship. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know that happened to other Chinese writers who, like American Chinese writers, or they
Mhm.
have to change based on the requirement from the publisher. Based the publisher, if you don't make this change, we can't publish for you.
Right.
So they have to make the changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, um you're doing this as a side project. Your full-time job is you're a financial advisor?
Yeah, I'm a financial advisor.
Okay. Oh, well, don't be so. It sounds so. You don't sound too happy about that. But it's I asked because obviously doing something like as a writer, trying to promote your own books and that is not an activity or pursuit that comes without some sort of financial burden. And uh, as a financial advisor, you must be weighing all your decisions and saying, is it really worth it for me to pay for this promotion or things of that nature? Like, do you have a good sense of how to balance what you want to do creatively versus what you can do financially?
Writing the book doesn't put food on the table. Not
Right.
for me, not at this stage. So
Sure.
fortunately, I have I don't know if I call myself successful, but I have accumulated a portfolio, investment portfolio large
Sure.
enough to
Right.
supporting my book writing
Yeah.
career.
Yeah. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. That's
yeah.
great. So your first book has been out for a while now, or
Last October, so been a
last
year.
October, and it's
Yeah.
available on Amazon and other.
Amazon, Indigo, Walmart,
Mhm.
Kobo, Barnes and
Right.
Noble, some Canadian like independent bookstores as well.
Right. And
Library, yeah.
is it print to demand or
No, it's not printed on demand.
okay.
Yeah,
Have you done ebook versions of the book?
yeah. There's an ebook version.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you do that or did somebody else do that for you?
My publisher did that for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So going forward, you're still looking to get the second book published. Do you have a timeline as to when that would happen yet, or you don't know?
I don't know yet. I mean, the
Okay.
sooner the better, but I didn't know how difficult to find the publisher. I thought because I only
Mhm.
signed a contract with my current publisher for the first book.
Right.
I never expected that now the second book is being delayed.
Okay. Are you entertaining the thoughts of publishing it yourself?
Um, Eventually, if I don't get any publisher,
Hmm.
I just have to. I'm not
Sure.
going to bury it with
Right.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that seems to be a path a lot of writers are taking today.
yeah,
Trying to build up a portfolio and then hopefully maybe a big publisher or traditional publisher will take note of them, and then they kind of want to see writers have a built up audience before they take them on nowadays, I think.
yeah,
So the burden is really on the writers nowadays to establish themselves
yeah.
in the market.
But at least now you have the option, right?
That's
30
right.
years
Yeah,
ago, you didn't even have that
that's right.
option.
That's
Yeah.
right, for sure. So you've got this trilogy done. Are you working on other projects?
I haven't started, but
Okay.
because I'm still fine tuning, especially the third book, and I'm trying to translate the second book into Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Um, but my goal is the next trilogy will be the title will be Oh Canada,
Ah,
because that will
okay.
be my story after I came to Canada. So it's
Right.
like an immigrant story.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you'd like to mention that hasn't come up during the course of this interview?
I just like to ask my readers, if you read my book, I really, really appreciate if you leave a review either on Amazon or Goodreads, because that's the
Mm.
way I collect feedback.
Okay.
And also, of course, it will keep me going.
Sure. And
Yeah,
and if readers wanted to reach out to you, where's the best place to find you?
I have a website. It's tong-ge.com.
Okay.
So they can reach me there. There.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if they search for your book title, they probably could find your website as well, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Should
probably.
should should be able to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the success with getting the rest of your trilogy published.
Thank you so much, Lou. I really appreciate this.
Not a problem. It was a blast talking to you. You have a very interesting background, and I really enjoyed learning about it.
Thank
And I
you.
tip my hat off to you that you've been able to come so far with everything that you've done so far.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Yeah, take care now. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.